Imagine a world where fear, superstition, and a lack of evidence could destroy a person's life. From 1692 to 1693, a small Puritan village in Massachusetts found itself in a frenzy of witchcraft accusations, the Salem witch trials. This story is not just about witches. It's about the dangers of mass hysteria, religious extremism, and the failure of justice. The Salem witch trials resulted in a lack of due process, social tensions, and the religious hysteria, which led to the wrongful accusations of innocent individuals in Salem, Massachusetts during 1692 to 1693. Let's dive into this horrifying chapter of American history. Salem was a small, isolated village in colonial Massachusetts with around 500 residents. Although part of the larger Salem community, it is more impoverished, less fortunate area where life was harsh and survival was uncertain. The residents of Salem were Puritans, people deeply committed to a strict interpretation of Christianity, where sin could lead to eternal damnation. Every aspect of their lives was governed by their belief in God's law, which was their ultimate authority, and they believed that the devil was constantly trying to infiltrate their society. These Puritans were also isolated from the broader world in the 17th century. Their lack of understanding disease, mental illness, and other natural phenomena in science led their interpretations of events when things went wrong. Could you imagine visiting the doctor and being diagnosed with witchcraft? If something strange happened, whether it was a sudden illness, misfortune, or just an unusual behavior, there had to be a reason. In a community where the devil was believed to be real and active, it didn't take much for one's mind to jump to the conclusion that witchcraft was the cause. The Salem witch trials didn't just happen overnight. It all started with a group of young girls in Salem Village who began exhibiting strange behaviors. They would scream, act out, and claim to see visions. The local ministers couldn't explain what was happening in the earlier months of 1692. Reverend Parris, whose daughter Betty and niece Abigail Williams were a part of the afflicted, was searching for answers, and it wasn't long before the word witchcraft got out. But who were these girls? They were a part of a tight-knit, religious community. This may sound like a plot of a movie, however, this was real life for these young girls. They were influenced by a world of rigid beliefs, where the fear of the devil was ever present. Abigail Williams, one of the main accusers, was just 11 years old when she began accusing others of witchcraft, which followed a storm of accusations that quickly spiraled out of control. At first, these accusations seemed small, starting with a few girls and those disconnected from society, but then it became everyone. People with no real power, outcast and marginalized members of the community, were suddenly blamed. Every woman who showed signs of aging, forgetfulness, or simply screamed caused suspicion. A simple flaw could have high potential for accusation if the right person was listening. Soon, even respected members of Salem's community weren't safe. To understand the full scale of the Salem witch trials, we must consider the intense religious and social pressure the Puritans faced. They lived in a world where sin was not just a personal matter, it was a threat to their entire community. The Puritans believed in the constant presence of the devil, so any signs and symptoms of abnormality were treated as evidence that Satan influenced their lives. A flat tire? Blame it on the devil. Lost your car keys? Blame it on the devil. Failed a test? Blame it on the devil. The Puritan belief system also made Salem especially vulnerable. There was very little tolerance for deviation. Women in Salem had few rights and limited power. In fact, most of the people accused of witchcraft were women, as well as those who were poor, older, or on the outskirts of society. Women who didn't conform to society standards, whether by being outspoken, independent, or simply vulnerable, were often targeted. It wasn't just women. The poor and marginalized were the primary targets. People who didn't own land, who didn't have the social status to defend themselves, were easy scapegoats. Economic rivalries and personal grievances also played a significant role in the accusations. Around 144 to 185 individuals were accused of witchcraft, close to 33% of their community. For example, if you fought with someone, accusing them of witchcraft was an easy way to destroy them. Recently argued with someone? Why not retaliate with the accusation of witchcraft? The trials became notorious for their complete lack of due process. The legal system was designed to protect the innocent, yet it played out the opposite of those expectations. To use symmetrical evidence, a testimony based on visions, dreams, or spiritual experiences, was one of the most shocking aspects. A person could be accused of witchcraft simply because someone else claimed to see their spirit harming them in the night. This was accepted as indisputable evidence in court, despite having no solid facts or records. The accused had no real defense. They were often forced to confess under pressure and threatened with execution if they didn't. In some cases, the accused were innocent people who had nothing to do with witchcraft whatsoever. Often, they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time or simply victims of someone else's personal grudge. The Salem witch trials were also driven by social tensions. Many of the accused came from the fringes of society: the poor, the elderly, the powerless, or those who didn't conform to strict Puritan norms. The trials became an outlet for frustrations that had been building up in the community, whether due to economic struggles, personal rivalries, or political conflicts. In the crucible, Abigail Williams' jealousy of Elizabeth Proctor drives her to accuse Elizabeth of witchcraft. Elizabeth is married to John Proctor, who had an affair with young Abigail. To protect herself, Abigail manipulates the town through the spread of her lies. As she exploits many innocent people, this leads to Elizabeth's trial, where she is forced to confess to either her or her husband's execution. This reveals the immense pressure each person faced. Whether they had wrongfully committed an act or not, death was a looming threat for everyone. In reality, personal rivalries played out in similar ways. The trials weren't just about religion, they were about social power. People exploited their fellow peers to settle past conflicts and remove those they saw as threats to their own status. One could die in various ways, from the tight knot wrapped around their neck as they hung, buried under heavy boulders, or due to harsh conditions in jail. By the end of the trials, 19 people had been executed, and dozens more were imprisoned or tortured. Families were torn apart, reputations destroyed, and a community's trust was shattered. Salem would never be the same. Following the trials, many survivors and their families received apologies, and the courts overturned convictions. However, the scars remained. The Salem witch trials revealed how easily a society could be manipulated into mass hysteria when fear took over. As Winston Churchill once said, "Those who fail to remain from history are doomed to repeat it." The Salem witch trials remain a powerful reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria, religious extremism, and the lack of due process. They embody a warning about what happens when fear overrides reason and individual rights are ignored. Today, these events serve as a cautionary example of the importance of standing firm in our commitment to justice, reason, and protection of individual rights. Here are my works cited. The Crucible played a key role in my understanding of the trials. It not only referenced real-life figures and portrayed the townspeople in Salem, but also served as a reminder of common issues present in our society.